What is up? This is your LA in a minute. Today we're going to talk about Wilmington, a low-key, mostly industrial community in LA's harbor area. Now, I dive into some pretty serious history on this channel, and not only is Wilmington one of the oldest communities in LA, but the story of Wilmington starts with Abraham Lincoln. What? Let's get into it. So in 1858, Manuel Dominguez, former alcalde, mayor of Los Angeles and one of the largest landowners, sold the land that would eventually become Wilmington to Phineas Banning, a staging and shipping magnate. Banning had the strategic vision of building a wharf and cargo facilities for the then landlocked but burgeoning city of Los Angeles. The city was then known as New San Pedro and became the first port in Los Angeles, which facilitated commerce and perhaps more importantly became the West Coast headquarters of the Union Army during the Civil War. Believe it or not, Los Angeles was a Confederate hotbed at this point, and there were many sympathizers to the secessionist movement of the South. That's when Phineas Banning wrote directly to President Abraham Lincoln about his concerns and offered to donate 60 acres of his own land north of the port, where with Lincoln's approval, the Army built Camp Drum to direct military operations on the West Coast. Under the watchful eye of President Lincoln from afar and Phineas Banning from close, the nascent Los Angeles harbor was now protected from Confederate attack. In 1863, New San Pedro was formally renamed Wilmington in honor of Banning's Delaware birthplace. As the Civil War came to an end, the growing city focused on commerce, and Phineas Banning once again began construction on the Los Angeles and San Pedro Railroad, the first in the region, in 1868. The railroad cemented Wilmington's position as Southern California's preeminent port until 1897, when Congress designated neighboring San Pedro as LA's official port. Unable to really compete with San Pedro, Wilmington began to fall into a period of decline. In 1909, the city of Los Angeles annexed Wilmington, and its port operations were consolidated with San Pedro's, which created a shipping complex that stretched all the way to Long Beach. In 1919, tourism gave Wilmington a boost as the neighborhood became the point of departure for excursion boats heading to Catalina Island, drawing thousands of travelers. But it was the discovery of oil in the 1920s that supercharged Wilmington's growth, spearheading a 1,000% increase in population in only 10 years. During these oil excavations, it was discovered that the indigenous Tongva people were the original inhabitants of what would become Wilmington as far back as 7,000 years ago. And the drilling continued, and the country's third largest oil field, Wilmington Oil Field, was discovered in 1932. Also in 1932, Mexican fan palms were planted along Avalon Boulevard in preparation for Los Angeles hosting the Olympic Games. These were amongst the first of 50,000 trees that would be planted and what would become the consummate symbol of Los Angeles. 30 years later, in 1962, the first Der Wiener Schnitzel, now known as Wiener Schnitzel, opened on PCH in Wilmington. Today, Wilmington is incorporating more green space, a night market, things like that. But it's important to note that the oil industry is still the engine that makes Wilmington go, with 2 refineries working 24 hours a day to process the crude oil from the Wilmington oil field. And those Mexican fan palms still line Avalon Boulevard, making them some of the oldest of LA's beloved transplant tree. So even though Wilmington is a low-key, mostly industrial community, there's still a ton of pride in the area. And with a history that stretches back to Abraham Lincoln, it's well earned. All right, LA, it's been a minute.